Good evening, everybody. Happy Saturday. I'm tripping. Happy Saturday on this beautiful day, November the 4th of 2023. So you see the title, all right? The subject is about the Moorish Science Temple of America. And I decided to bring a friend along that's going to be in this discussion with me. We're going to have this conversation. We're going to talk. I'm going to ask him some questions because he himself was born and raised as a Moor. All right, he grew up in it. So I'm gonna ask him some
I'm gonna get a
questions or
12
whatnot.
pack.
But
The cans
but
are
be,
better than them.
but before I get started, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, etc. Y'all already know what to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring my friend on in here. All right, we're gonna have this dialogue. We're gonna have this interesting conversation, and I'm going to ask him some good questions. All right. This is my friend, brother Melvin Whitfield-Bey. Yes, his last name is Bay. Okay, but he go by Kudjo, you know. But he's going to be here. We're gonna have this conversation, and it's gonna be great. So let me know when you're ready, brother.
I'm ready.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. All right. So first and foremost, now you're originally from Richmond, Virginia, correct?
Correct. Big up Virginia. Yes.
Okay. All right. And you was born and raised as a Moor yourself, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So how long have you been a Moor?
Well, my mother got into the temple in like 1970, late 75. I was born in 76. So I was actually born Melvin Smith. That's her last name. But
Okay.
she changed it to Melvin Bay. So my whole life, my name was Melvin Bay. Melvin Whitfield-Bey. My father's name is Whitfield. So she included that, that was part of the, she was young. My mother was like 18, 17, 18 when I was born. So
Okay.
that was part of the, you know what I mean? The deal was include my father's name. So that's what a Whitfield is. But my name has been Bay for my entire life.
Okay. That's great. That's great. Wow. Such a history there. Such a history. Now, if you don't mind me asking, what temple did you attend to in Richmond? Do you remember the name of the temple
Yeah,
that
Temple
you?
number 6, Moorish Science Temple of America. Temple number 6 is one of the factions of the nation, of the Moorish Science Temple, which recognizes the reincarnated prophet Timothy. I think his name was Timothy Gibbons. Yeah, Timothy Gibbons. Thomas Gibbons L. John Gibbons L. I'm sorry, John Gibbons L.
Hmm.
He was the supposed reincarnated prophet of Nova Raleigh. So there's several factions of the temple, but I fall out of that one that was more concentrated in Newark, New Jersey, as opposed to Chicago, Illinois.
Okay. All right. So now let's start with the questions. I had to write my questions down.
That's what's up.
Okay. So now, who is Noble Drew Ali?
um, well, Timothy Drew or Thomas Drew was, according to the Moorish Science Temple, born in North Carolina.
Hmm.
Um, he was a traveler as a young man. He supposedly worked in the Merchant Marines. He traveled all over the Mediterranean and met with Egyptian adepts and all that. But as I got older, when I was young, that story was awesome. You know what I'm saying? But when I got older, I came to realize that may not be the case. You know what I'm saying? that may not be the case. And that Thomas Drew actually worked in Richmond for quite a while. And he was from Norfolk, according to some research. But I mean, he just was one of many of the people who came in the early 1900s. Like your father Divines or your daddy Graces or your father Muhammad's. Who started these religions. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And the Moorish Science Temple is one of the ones that happened to survive.
Okay. So now, did the Moorish Science Temple of America originally start in New Jersey or in Chicago?
Originally, it was in New Jersey.
Okay,
Originally,
but
it was in New Jersey. It
they
got its first
expanded. They
charter in
moved
New
over to
Jersey.
Chicago.
Yeah, in Newark, New Jersey. Yeah, but he moved around. He moved around, and Chicago was the perfect environment. Because of the half flip. Just like Newark was, kind of viable for it. The legend in the temple, what they used to tell us in Richmond was he came here first, but because we were so indoctrinated with our slave master and all that stuff, he had to go up north. So, like a lot of people, we grew up under the fiction that the North was more, um, what's the name I'm looking for? They were more knowledgeable, or more, not knowledgeable. That's not the word, but they were more open to it. But when you look at the demographics, you would have had more younger people, in the North, without, that familial background that you had in the South. You know what I'm saying? Because of the great migration and people moving there in the early 19th century. So I could
Oh,
kind of see how it's stuck. You know what I'm
okay.
saying? But it, it's a really interesting thing. You know what I'm saying? It's worthy of looking into, I think.
Okay. So, what year was the MSTA founded? What year? Do you know?
According to that doctrine, it was founded in 1913.
Okay.
But that was the founding of the Canaanite temple, which, according to the temple of the day, they would say that Nodrali started the Canaanite temple. But um, it already existed, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? So Nodrali is probably like 1925, the actual MSTLV, which went through a lot of changes. Because initially the Moorish Science Temple, it didn't have the Moorish American moniker until they were hit by the government, because it was looked at as an anti-American organization. So that's when they start brought the American in and put the American flag beside it as well. Because during that time, 19 early 1900s, you had a lot of what you call it. It was a World War I. You know what I'm saying? And Turkey was actually part of, was allied with Germany. So anything that was anti-Western, what I'm saying, or anti-American, you could look towards Turkey. I think that's why they chose the name Bey and Il as monikers. Out of a
Mm,
misunderstanding, actually, because Bey in Turkish, it means several things, but it could mean governor, or it could mean like a waiter, but it is a term of respect. But in the Turkish language, like saying a man name is Amir Bey Amir, his name would be spelled out Amir Bey. You know what I mean? Because they do I forgot the conjugation, linguistic conjugation, but they put Bey in the end. But it's like, sometimes in Spanish, how the adjective will come after the noun instead of before the noun. You see what I'm saying? So
mm-hmm.
Bey, it's like we misinterpreted Bey of being a surname, when Bey is not actually a surname in Turkish at all.
Okay. Well, what type of surname is it?
It's not a surname at all. It's a title.
Okay. Okay. What about L?
I mean, they pronounce it ill, and
Mm-hmm.
L is just the same Hebrew thing. It's just the same. It's just Hebrew, or Arabic, however you want to say it. But that's just it's the same thing. It means
Okay.
God, actually, but it also means the.
Oh, okay. 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 So now you were saying that at the time they had to change their names to Moorish Science Temple of America
Hmm.
because it was looked at as being anti-American. Now
Yeah.
that leads me to the question that I got here at the very bottom: are there multiple sects of Moorish Science Temple of America? If so, why?
Yes, there are countless sects, because when the prophet died, as they say, um you had several people who sought to lead the organization, and the Chicago faction was the biggest. That's where you get your Cleveland Bays and the frog guy, I forget his name. But they split, and like I said, the organization I was part of, his limo driver, John Givens, he claimed to be the reincarnated prophet, so he started his own thing, and they took over the Newark branch of it. So like my temple, the temple I was part of, like I've been called out by Moors, from other places, and they're like, it's not even a temple number six. You know what I'm saying? But because even in Richmond, there are two factions. There's the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, and there's the Moorish Science Temple. But it's you still obey. Some people don't recognize the reincarnated prophet. Other people do, but You still rise, give honor, no Ali. I mean, that rise, give honor to Allah, next to his prophet, no Ali, reincarnated. That's how we say it. But yeah, how we
Oh,
said it.
okay, okay. So now what was the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America? I think you may have answered that question, but if not, just
I
you know.
mean, I think initially, I think that Thomas Drew or Timothy Drew may have been quite sincere in building this organization, but the organization just was built off of other groups, namely Marcus Garvey group, whereas the Moorish Science Temple to this day uh, insists that Marcus Garvey was the harbinger for No Ali, the harbinger, or like the John the Baptist character who would come before Jesus. You know,
And I was just about to ask that question. Who was the inspiration to Noble Drew Lee? But you already answered
I mean,
that.
supposedly. I
Garvey.
mean, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it was a popular thing in the 20s. You know what I'm saying? Like you see anecdotal stuff like Muhammad Ali told got the story about the Malcolm X told a story about how the guy from the South went into a Southern restaurant and put a turban on his head, pretending he was from somewhere else. And he got served. He could get served in that restaurant. While your typical American Negro, couldn't go in that same restaurant. So the idea with the temple initially was a type of identity, which um, sought to kind of separate us as a people from what we were dealing with at the time. Like you got to understand, in the early 1900s, we're like 35 years removed from the Emancipation Proclamation. So you had like the first and second generation of people ever to be born in America, who weren't enslaved. You know what I'm saying? So they're searching for an identity. That's why they're so big on, you're not black, Negro, or colored, or Ethiopian. And the or Ethiopian part was because I believe there was a lot of conflict between other groups who did claim to be Ethiopian, because Ethiopian was kind of the popular thing at the time, especially when you had your Haile Selassie, which wasn't at that particular moment, but you had your Haile Selassie, gaining worldwide um, attention, at the time. So you had other organizations who said that we were Ethiopian. So one of the ways that the Moors contested that was to say that no, we aren't Ethiopian. They said that Ethiopian, on the other hand, meant divided, which it doesn't.
Mm, okay. So is that the teachings of Noble Drew Ali? What was his original teachings?
Yeah, that's basically what he taught. He did. He did. He taught that. I mean, that's in the original doctrine. I was trying to find my Circle Seven. I haven't seen it in so long.
Okay.
But in the questionnaire, you have the questionnaire, which is a little blue book, was ask you. It's like the children pretty much try to memorize it. You got to get up and like read the acts and all that stuff, or say the acts about heart. It's like a real big deal. Like my mother's real proud when I could finally do that. Could do a
Mm,
couple of them.
okay. All right.
But let me be frank. The Moorish Science Temple is a pseudo Islamic Masonic cult. That's what it really is in real life, because it's it's based like on a lot of Masonic, you know what I'm saying, symbolization, and it's not Islam in that it's not, it's not, and I don't want to say Eastern Islam as they say, but it's not Islam based on the
Oh.
the Quran and Prophet Muhammad and all that.
Okay. So now getting to that part, the correlation between with the Moorish Science Temple American and Sufism and Masonic synchronization, basically. You're saying that the Moorish Science Temple America got their inspiration from the Sufism, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could say
And
Sufism, but
Masonic concept, pretty much.
yeah, I mean, but see, you could say Sufism, but we got to understand that at the time, at that particular time, there I think that what Muhammad Pictal was the first Arabic, Arabic to English translation. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So you didn't have a lot of information out there about Islam, to be quite honest. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have that much. It was there, but you didn't have that much. So what the Moorish Science Temple did was uh kind of like, I'm pretty sure you heard of the Aquarian Gospels and all that.
Yes.
But
Can't you explain what is the Aquarian gospel?
yeah, Aquarian Gospel, it is the Circle Seven Quran pretty much. It is. You know what I'm saying? I forget the guy's name. I used to be real, I had to be slick with that back in the day. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because people,
Do you ever have they ever explained to you why the gospel of Aquarius was
oh, the
used?
the members said that the guy took it from Levi Dowling. They said that Levi Dowling took it from Noble Ali. I mean, that's just the way they would put it. You know what I'm saying? And then you have more realistic apologists nowadays, which would say that he used the information that he got, whether it was from Levi Dowling or not. You know what I'm saying? But when I was young and I first came across the Levi Dowling thing, they said that he stole it from Noble Ali.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So now the number seven,
Hmm?
the number seven. Let's talk about the number seven.
Oh yeah.
Why was the number seven chosen, and what does it represent? Why was it used as a representation of God? Why was the number seven is chosen?
It's that's a similar Masonic code. Like you'll have a lot of more to try to tell you about this the sanctity of the number seven and all that stuff. But in reality, it's more like when you look at the Circle Seven Quran. You see the circles, you see the little openings in it. That's a representation of the compass. You know what I'm saying? And the seven is a G. The G is the seventh letter. You know what I'm saying? So just like the Masonic thing
Hmm.
where you had a compass in the square, it's
Hmm.
similar to that. That's what it actually is.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
that's
but they,
interesting.
they would have a whole lot of stories about like what the seven actually represents. Like I remember one of the riddles they used to say when I was young. They would ask you how many days was it in a month, how many days was it in a week, how many days was it in a year, and people are be trying to like 30, 28, but the answer is seven because it's 7 days: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You know what I'm saying? But that was a neat little trick when I was young. I could get people with it and stuff, but um, it's more again. That's one of the pseudo Masonic things is in it. And when I say pseudo, I don't mean that in the way that we vaingloriously use it in this supposed conscious community. I mean pseudo as in false, like
Mhm.
literally. I don't mean like it's real pseudo. You did it. Nah, we misuse that term far too much. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. All right. Oh, someone asked a question real quick. Now, someone want to know: do you think Freemasonry, originated with Black people?
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. So now, what is the meaning behind the acronym Islam? I, self, law, and master.
Yeah, that's something that they came up with later. The same thing with the arm, leg, arm, head. That's just some jargon, and it's neat, and it's attractive. You know what I'm saying? And I don't
So,
want to shit on stuff, to turn people off, but it's just neat. You know what I mean?
so
That's
what do
all
you
it is.
think the meaning was when
I
they said?
mean,
What do
it's
you think
it,
the meaning when
it's
they say I, self, law, and master?
it's just trying to again, it's trying to gain some type of control because you're coming out of a situation where we were taught that we had zero autonomy. Like coming out of slavery, we're taught that we had zero autonomy. We had no control over ourselves. So that's like a reclamation of yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're saying that you're in control. And the 5 percenters will go on to use it as well as the nation. Well, the nation Islam, and then the 5 percenters will go on to use it. But Islam itself, it actually is from the Arabic salam, which is SLM or salam lim meme, and you put the alif in front of it, and it would designate that it's a state of something. So Islam would mean condition of peace. Though they say submission, the word literally means peace.
Okay.
That's how
Okay.
we greet each other in the Moorish Science Temple. We greet each other with Islam. Like I didn't learn Assalamu alaikum. Well, I learned it when I was probably about 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But we say Islam when I was in the temple. That's how we greet each other. Islam, and we depart with peace. But you're saying the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Both times.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Then, so let's talk about more science. What
Mhm.
is more science?
Nothing. It's just some jargon just to make you feel smart.
Okay. So what
Yeah.
now? What did they use to make what they call more science? Like what type of concept was used in it?
There's really no concept. That's just the word. It's just something they use. It's not. There's really no science behind it. Honestly, I mean, I don't want to like oversell it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to offend anyone who is in the temple. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? But no, there's no science. But the idea is a good one because it's an idea where you are studying it and actually comparing things and being scientific about it. Like you don't have we're not taught the scientific method on Sundays in class or nothing. You know what I'm saying? However, the idea is you constantly test things. You know what I'm saying? Again, you're taking control. You're not being told things. You're looking it up yourself. You're figuring out. You're looking deep into things as opposed to just taking what's given to you.
Hmm.
But again, it's more rhetoric and it sounds good and it make you feel good about yourself. It
So it's
really,
more like know thyself type of thing.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Which is an Islamic thing. Well, it's not. That's actually come from like I think a Greek philosopher like Socrates or somebody, but it was definitely incorporated into early Islam with because of them being influenced by the Romans.
Okay. 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 So now, why are Black people considered Asiatics in God?
I think the whole Asiatic thing
Mhm.
stem from like they would say what their answer would be what is that the entire world at one point was considered Asia. So we're just saying that we're not just Africans. We are members of the larger Asiatic family. But again, contextually, if you look into the early 1900s, Asia was supposedly the birthplace of man. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? So you tie yourself to that. You tie yourself. It's similar to the way now how you have these groups who run from being African,
Mhm.
because again, contextually, in the early 1900s, what was the news going on in Africa? The news in Africa at the time, the work that was on a worldwide, was worldwide was Leopold in the Congo. The images that we have from Africa was Tarzan and Leopold in the Congo. So, as not to identify with that, we're saying that we are more than that we are actually this group, who controlled the world at one point. But the term Asiatic is actually considered derisive by people around the world. You know what I'm saying? But I grew up my whole life saying Asiatic. And I'll tell you why I have problems with that term while in the temple as we go
Okay. Well, if you like to explain why you have the problem with the term.
on. I was okay, well, to give you a little background, me
Okay.
being in the temple, my grandfather was like just like a firebrand, you know what I'm saying? He's from New Kent County, Virginia, big up Virginia. He he wasn't in the church, he got killed when my mother was like 14. But he wasn't in the church. His brothers, he's like the second youngest. He has a younger brother, my Uncle George. But his older brothers, they actually used to do his work on the farm for him, because they sharecropped and then they ended up getting their own farm in Newcomb County. And they worked on the farm for him so he could go to school because it was like he just had that, they was like he had that ghost in his eyes. That's some of the country people in Virginia say. You know what I'm saying? He had a ghost in his eyes. Like he just had this insight. And so he impressed that upon my mother. He actually went to see Elijah Muhammad. He wasn't impressed. Um he had some choice words for Elijah Muhammad. Not very negative, but he said that um if never look to a leader who has to have on shiny things to impress you. You know what I'm saying? um so my my mother when he died, my mother and her older brother actually, got into the Moorish Science Temple first. And like I said, she was like 16, 17, like getting out of in, 11th, 12th grade in high school when she got into it. And her brother joined and she joined. And she was shot. My mom got shot when she was 19. So my
Um,
mom ended up being paralyzed, and she was um a paraplegic. So like my thing with the temple was a little different from a lot of people, as that, it was only my mother into it. My father wasn't into it. You know what I'm saying? But when I was in the temple, and I was probably about 11, and we were outside, the kids, we outside playing and stuff, and we kicking a ball or something. And where the temple is in Richmond is right in the projects. It's right in Crane Court. And
it's right in the projects
yeah,
or
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's right. I mean, yeah, the projects are in front of it and behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Ah, okay.
So um we're playing, and we're just having fun. And one of the elder members, one of the men, he came out there and told us we were making too much noise. And he was like, y'all out here, y'all sound like Asiatics. And that's when Asiatics took on a negative thing from their standpoint, because, we were Moors, and Asiatics were your black people who didn't have that knowledge of self. And I remember when he said that, I was like, well, aren't we Asiatics? Like, I mean, what you mean we act like Asiatics? But it was kind of a euphemism in a sense for nigga, to say the more common and unbased of us. You're Asiatic until you realize you're actually a Moor type stuff. So that was like one of the many times that I was having problems with it as a youth. I thought that
Um,
was stupid.
okay, that's understandable. Very understandable. Now, do you think that the more science temple of America inspires the teaching of the Nation of Islam and 5% Nation and other organizations that came after?
Yeah, I mean it's quite similar to the Nation of Islam. It's more, I would say, it's more Jesus based essentially than the Nation of Islam, because the Sacred Seven Quran is like a gospel of Jesus Christ. You know what I'm saying? So it's more Jesus based. It's more Christian. You know what I'm saying? I would argue that Islam is a form of Christianity, period. But it's definitely a bit more. It could be attractive because you don't have to lose Jesus. You know what I'm saying? To your followers, you don't have to lose Jesus. You still have the Jesus aspect in it.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Um. So I want to ask you this question, and I forgot to write it on here, but I'm gonna ask you anyhow. What is your whole thought on those Moorish individuals who take on the concept of this idea of sovereignty status, status correction, and this whole thing that you can get a government
Yeah,
ID and stuff
that's
like
new. That I mean, that is not new, and that is in the 2000s. You know what I'm saying? I knew people who claimed to be sovereign citizens in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? But it's some white folk shit. That's white
that.
folk shit. The white folk people started that sovereign shit. They had nothing to do with the Moorish Science Temple. But the Moorish Science Temple is one of the organizations that definitely ran with it. I've seen people like get the police to leave them alone. I have,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never seen nobody go up in court and like get out of something that they actually did because of claiming they were a sovereign citizen or some crap. You know what I'm saying? But that goes back to what I said at first. It's being more than a descendant of a slave. You know what I'm saying? Where you could say that you're not a Negro, black or color. So you deserve respect because you're not part of that group. You know who you are. You're more, which it's just it's kind of like an intellectual masturbation, to be honest, because you get nothing out of it. You know what I'm saying? You just feel good. It means absolutely nothing. Seriously.
Okay. So now, what about the fez that the guys normally wear?
Oh yeah,
What
they
does
said
that
that was
symbolize?
the original headdress, the first headdress, and all that. But again, the fez would have been something that we would have seen in worldwide media with people who were actually adversarial to the United States. You see what I'm saying? Because of the Turks. Because at that point, the Turks, um, they still have major influence, and pretty much they ran North Africa. They didn't run Morocco. I think it went all the way to Tunis. You know what I'm saying? What Tunisia is, Tunis is the capital of Tunisia, north of Nigeria, near the Mediterranean coast in northern Africa. So this headdress, which was like they would say it came from Morocco because there's a city in Morocco called Fez, but actually it's an Ottoman headdress. I mean, it has significance. I mean, different things can mean things to different people, but in all honesty, it just was a headdress that was popularized by the Ottomans. So it was something looked at what Muslims did, so they took on the Muslim thing, and also the Masons did it. The Masons wore them as well. Again, with the pseudo Masonic thing. I mean, they have their own. They would say what it means. They would say that um, it's the first headdress given to man and all that stuff, but 360 degrees on the top and the bottom. The two circles with the tassel. No, it's Masonic. Any of their interpretations are from the Masons.
Okay. Now I've been curious. And I wonder, do the Moors? I know you say that they're like kind of like the off. I know we said that they're like the offshoot of Islam, or they take on Sufism ideology. I wonder, do they believe in prayer like 5 times a
No,
day?
we didn't pray 5 times a day. We were never told that. I mean, I was
Okay,
never told that in the temple. They might be doing it now, but I was never told that in the temple. No, we never prayed 5 times a day. We prayed like your typical Christians. You pray in the morning. We didn't even say grace. It was actually just a way not to be a Christian. You know
okay.
what I'm
So there was
saying?
no prayer, no
Yeah,
opening.
yeah. We prayed though, but you pray differently. Like you have people that the temple I was in. The way we prayed was kind of like Egyptian thing where we stand and put our hands up and face the east and put up 2 fingers on one hand and 5 fingers on the other for the number 7, and we'll pray like that. When some I met Muslims, as they say, from Philadelphia, and they would put their hand over their heart when they said it. Like the Masons, or like that's why how we say the pledge, which was a new thing. You put your hand over your heart and all that. But yeah,
All
but
right.
yeah, there was no salat. There was no um what you call it. I can't. The word begin with a P. When you I
Pro-
can't say the word.
proselytize
Yeah, I can't say it. But yeah, there wasn't. You didn't have that. We didn't do that at all.
or prostrating.
Prostrating. Yeah, there was no prostrating. We didn't
Oh,
do that at all. The temple was set up similar to a church. However, the men sat on one side and the women sat on the other side. The men were at the entrance and the women were uh inside. You know what I'm saying? So when you walk in the door, the men are sitting right there and the women are sitting on the other side.
okay, okay. So I want to ask you this. Now, what are the pros and the cons in
Well,
your
I,
opinion?
I could definitely say um one reason why I don't speak negatively about the Moorish Science Temple is because I grew up in it, so I still have I still have love. You know what I'm saying? Because there were good times. You know what I mean? Um, However, uh, the pros that I got out of it honestly was it made me comfortable in being different. It made me comfortable because I had to stand up. Like I said, I grew up in the South. I didn't grow up where you had a bunch of people um, talking that Muslim stuff. So I grew up amidst. I grew up not eating beef, pork, or chicken
I was
in
just gonna ask about the dietary law.
in a community that just pretty much did it up. So I had to stand up, like when I didn't eat, the hot dogs at the cookout. You know what I'm saying? I didn't eat the hamburgers, and so I was looked at as odd and strange. I was even ostracized by adults as a child. You know what I'm saying? But it gave me some type of mental fortitude, that I use to this day, where I'm just comfortable in myself. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely. I don't know where I would be if I would even exist without it, to be quite honest. So I give honor to the Moorish Science Temple on the strength of that.
Okay, 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 okay. And then, of course, you kind of named the cons, basically your disagreements and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean the cons is it's anti-African at its basis. It's getting you to try to run away from the thing that we need to face. You can't just avoid slavery. You can't just make up stories about you being a Cherokee Indian and traveling in the merchant marines and going to Egypt. And that's what made you. No, we are the sum of the experiences of our ancestors, and I think it kind of it makes us ignore that. And I think the Moorish Science Temple has influenced um, the modern day so-called cautious community, in that we attempt to look so far back. You know what I'm saying? It's an avoidance method, so you can avoid the slavery. It's a way to explain, how things happened, and really we were the greatest, and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of a good ego ego booster, which as a child I think is important. But as an adult, I think you need to be more realistic.
Okay, okay. Now, what book recommendation do you suggest on the history of the MSTA?
MST of A. Oh man, and I did mean to look that up. I'll get back. I could get back to you with the exact books, but I remember I was in the 8th grade. I was in the library, and I read this book, and it was about Islam in America, and it
Uh-huh.
gave kind of a breakdown on more on the Moorish Science Temple. Some of the stuff in it wasn't like legit, but it did explain how the organization evolved amidst it contextually. And that's one thing, when we look at things like anything, you need to look at the context in which these things occurred. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at World War I, uh America, you see, it was a change in time. We're coming out of a strictly agricultural, a country that was mainly an agricultural one, and we moved to one that was becoming more industrialized, becoming more a part of the world, the larger world. You know what I'm saying? So, um, I kind of forgot the question. I'm sorry, somebody knocked on my door.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Excuse me. What you say now? What was the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. No, I was asking about the book recommendation, but
Oh yeah, yeah, the book recommendation. Oh man, yeah, I'll have to get back to you on the exact books where I could tell somebody where they could go and learn about it, as opposed to like reading some of the actual rhetoric from the nation, from the Moorish Science Temple. Um, not what's his name? Truth Historian they had done, this is when I first met them, well, a few years ago. They had done that thing about the Thomas Drew thing, and I was looking up that book when I was at work, but I couldn't find it. It's a small pamphlet, but it's supposedly the history of Thomas Drew, how what he did. Um, I could send that to you so you can put that in the put that in your description or whatever. But I have to look it up to see exactly what it is. I have it on my computer's acting up, my laptop's acting up. I gotta,
okay.
but
So
go ahead. I'm
let's
sorry.
get into who are the Moors in history. Now,
Okay.
like who are the we're gonna talk brief, all right? We're
hmm
gonna spend some time on the Moors, the history of the Moors. So who were the Moors?
Um, the Moors were a group of um, well, what were called at the time Hagarenes or Saracens, who went into um uh the the Iberian Peninsula, which at the time was controlled by the Visigoth. The Visigoth. It was several Visigoth Gothic kingdoms who came after they had defeated the Romans. They had defeated, that was the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So at the time you had several Visigoth and Vandal kingdoms in the Iberian Peninsula. And right across the Strait of Gibraltar, which wasn't called that at the time, but they called it what, the Hercules or whatever, the Pillars of Hercules. But anyway, um, in 670, that's when you had this influx of these people that were called Muslims. At the time, they weren't even called Muslims, and I think that's important to note. The Christians who talked about them did not call them Muslims. They did not use the word Islam. Um, Supposedly Muhammad died in 670, so we're dealing with like 30 years, 30, 40 years after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. The 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 Saracens, or these people proselytizing this new religion, had made it from northern Arabia all the way to Morocco, in West Africa. And what initially happened was the Visigothic kings, they hired Moorish mercenaries to help them subdue another kingdom. But when the Moors got into El Andalus, saw how weak it was, and they eventually like took it all up. And I like to note that the people who we call Moors did not refer to themselves as Moors. It was the Visigoths who referred to them as Moors. And at the time, the word Moor typically simply meant black. That's
Mhm.
all it meant. You'll have all this. It means no, no, no. When they said it, it meant black. That's not to say that every single person who came across the Iberian Peninsula was a black person, but there were certainly black people, and they weren't slaves. Islam wasn't even codified by 711. You didn't have any hadiths at all in 711. There were less than 10 Qurans, period, in the entire Muslim world in 711. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't this like, I hear people talk about it and they'll say how the blacks were like the slaves and all of that. That's not true. Not at that time. You didn't have this codified thing of, black inferiority. That didn't exist at that time in Islam. You know what I'm saying? Islam, those people, what they did was they just pretty much took the place of the Romans in those areas, because of the fall of the Western Roman Empire, while the Eastern Roman Empire lasted until 1453. You know what I'm saying? Which we call Constantinople, or we call the Byzantine Empire. But that's part of our Western indoctrination, because the people in the Byzantine Empire didn't refer to themselves as Byzantine Empire. They referred to themselves as Romans.
All right.
So to
So
this day, people in that region, Greek speaking people in that region, refer to themselves as Romani. That's why we have Romania and all that. But yeah, these people were Romans. But the fall of the Western Roman Empire, when the Visigoths and the Vandals and other Germanic tribes sacked the actual city of Rome, but this, you have to keep in mind, these people were Christian at that time. You know what I'm saying? So you had these Christian empires that existed in Spain. And when uh what it Tariq, when that's what Gilbert is named after, when he went into El Andalus, they pretty much took it over. They went as far as France by 732, where they were stopped by Charles Martel at the Battle of Tours. And Charles Martel's referred to those people as black. He called them Moors.
so now this leads me to my question. Did the Moors take over Spain?
Yeah, yeah. Spain and Portugal initially, but Portugal was able to free itself in the 13th century, in the 1200s. But yep, they took over the entire peninsula pretty much, except for the very northern part. You had them holdouts, like I said, with the French. Charles Martel was the grandfather of Charlemagne. Charles the Magnificent, the savior of Western Europe, they call him. So yeah, I mean, again, look at the context. What's going on in that region at the time? It's not like they were so powerful that they just went in. They actually went in and took over fairly new and um, sectionalized kingdoms. You know what I'm saying? They played kingdoms against each other, but it was still a great thing. It was awesome what they did when you look at the scope.
Hmm.
Certainly,
Why would you say that is awesome? What made it so awesome?
I mean, awesome not in a good thing, but awesome in that it was kind of a great feat. You know what I'm saying, for a group of people who were um, very unorganized, you know what I'm saying, at a point, because the Vandals came down there and they took all of North Africa like with ease. You know what I'm saying? They took it with ease. So you had this upstart group, who were proselytizing this new religion, saying that, they descended from the other the other son of Abraham. At you have some people who actually refer to these people as Ishmaeli or Ishmaelites.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because the whole tenet in Islam is the Arabs come from Ishmael, the Jews come from Isaac through Jacob, and yada yada.
Hmm. Okay.
But no, it was an awesome thing that they did. And I mean it was different. Islam changed the world.
Well, and I can agree with you on certain levels only because when it especially when it comes to science and
Oh yeah,
math,
definitely. Yeah,
definitely, yeah, a lot of Muslims were involved in that. A lot
yeah,
of Muslims were
yeah.
involved.
Because like unlike Christianity of the time, especially in Western Europe, Christianity was it kind of, you can kind of see how I like now the Christian West is the most progressive. You know what I'm saying? The Christian West is the most successful. Whereas at that time, the East was the most successful. The most industrious. So the West kind of, they knelt down in their religion and they became so dogmatic in their religion. To the point where, like, we'll say stuff like the Moors taught Europeans how to take baths. That's not true. That's not true. The Europeans were taking baths, for centuries before they met Moors. But what is true about it is it had become a Christian thing that bathing was arrogant. So you had some of these Christian kingdoms who looked down on bathing, who looked down on Romans, because the Roman bath, they looked at that as an arrogant thing, because the Romans were so big into bathing, so they were trying to separate themselves from their past pagan beliefs. So that
Mm,
was one of the things that they brought into it. Like, your ablution was through the blood of Christ, not through just water. The water was back. You know what I mean? So
right.
yeah, so it just the ideology, was just different at that particular time when the Moors got into Spain. You know what I'm saying? But um, you had a bunch of things that were lost to the West. They weren't lost to the East, and that's how we're kind of given this Western narrative when we're taught about history. It's like this continuing saga of Greece, then Rome, and then Charlemagne, and then the Normans, and But in actuality, no, no, it was more. The West was cut off from the East. The center of the Roman Empire at that time was in Constantinople, which is modern day Istanbul. So that was the center of Christianity. That was the capital of the Roman Empire. So you still had these scientific advancements going on over there, but you didn't have it in the West, because the Western Catholic Church was trying to break itself away from the Eastern, and that schism still exists with the Eastern Orthodox Christians and the Catholics. The Eastern Orthodox Christians who speak Greek, they consider themselves the Catholics. They don't recognize the Pope. You know what I'm saying? But these Western Catholics, they had more of a isolationist point of view. So they didn't want this knowledge from outside. They didn't want to build on to what the Romans had already done. It was in God's hands, so to speak. Whereas it was a more practical approach coming from the East. And that's what the Muslims took with them when they went into El Andalus with those Spain. It was the same type of higher learning, which was still present in the Roman Empire, but in the East. So yeah, so that's where you get Iraq, and you get all of the um this scientific innovation and all of that. It came through the Muslims, not
Mm.
necessarily the Arabs, but definitely the Muslims.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about Benedict the Moor.
You talking about, all right? You got to refresh me on that one. You talking about the one who told the Portuguese about the slaves or whatever?
Let me double check that. I don't want to. I don't want to misquote that. Let's. Let's
Because
see.
Benedict is a Latin name. It means
Yeah,
good
Benedict
words.
IV OFM was a Sicilian Frisian Farrar who is venerated as a saint in the Catholic Church, born of enslaved Africans in San Fratello. He was
Hmm.
free at birth and became known for his charity.
Okay.
Uh, let me see. Let me see. Well, let's see if I can.
So he was a friar. So he was a Catholic friar. Um. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, let me see if I can go any further. As a matter of fact, let me pull it up for you. Oh yeah, let me pull it up for you, if you don't mind. Hold on. Let me go ahead and pull this information up for you. All right. So I'm on the website right here. All right. Hopefully you can see that. So it says Benedict the Moor was born a slave near Messina, Italy. He was freed by his master, became a solidarity, eventually settling with other hermits at Monte Pellegrino. If I'm saying it right, he was made superior of the community. But when he was about 38, Pope Pius, I think that's what the fifth, or I'm not good with Roman numerals, so I think that's Pope Pius the fourth, I believe. Disbanded communities of solidarities, he became a Frisian lay brother. He cooked at St. Mary's Covenant near Palermo. He was appointed against his will superior of the covenant when it opted for the reform, though he could neither read nor write. After serving as a superior, he became a novice master, but asked to be relieved of his post and returned to his former position as a cook. His holiness, reputation for miracle, and his fame as a confessor brought hordes of visitors to see the obscure and humble cook. He died at the convent, was canonized in 1807, and is the patron saint of blacks in the United States. The surname the Moor is a misnomer originating from the Italian immortal. His feast day is April the 4th. You heard me, Brother
Oh
Melvin?
yeah, he was. Yeah, I muted myself. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was a black. Yeah, it was the fourth. Pope Pius the fourth. I was saying that the whole time. I was wondering why you didn't respond. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
because you was on mute. I couldn't hear you.
yeah, I was
I
talking.
couldn't hear you.
Yeah, Pope Pius the fourth. Yeah,
Okay.
he died in the convent. Oh, he just the patron saint for black people in the United States. That was the way the Catholic Church was trying to get black people in the United States to join when they started becoming more of a when they started becoming more visible in the early 1900s. But
Mm,
he was just black. I mean, that's it. The El Moro means black. It doesn't mean he's come from, that he was part of some Moorish people who took over Spain. He just was
okay.
black.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
Maurice, like Saint Maurice, the one who I think they hold him real high in Germany because his unit sacrificed themselves in the name of Christianity and stuff like that. That just goes to show that there were blacks in Europe. There were certainly blacks in Europe, but these black people in Europe weren't some indigenous black folks in Europe. Black people have been in Europe throughout the Roman Empire. During the Greek, like the times of Alexander, for instance, black people were very familiar in the Mediterranean region.
Okay. Okay. Going to the comments in the chat. Somebody posted a comment. The Moors sold out Africa. They were not trying to colonize the Caucasian. If so, they would continue to bring more reinforcement from Africa to do so. The Moors were trying to assimilate. What's your thought on that comment?
I mean, that's kind of that's kind of taking 700 years of history and looking at it from a modern standpoint. The Moors didn't look at themselves as some unified African group. Period. There was no concept of me Africa, you Europe. And then to say that they didn't do anything, they were actually in Spain for more than 700 years, and we have to really take that into account when we realize the United States is only 247 years old. So these people were there for 700 years. So to say that they sold out Africa, they assimilated. No, they were part of the culture that made Europe what it is. There's no us against them. That us against them is something that we learn that isn't true. There was no blacks against whites. That didn't exist at that time at all. In 7-Eleven, that didn't exist at all. there was no, there was no like no, no. The Moors or the Muslims thought that they should rule the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to any other group, to be quite honest.
Okay.
Be they Mongols or Romans or Christians, they were no different. No, they didn't sell out Africa. They weren't. They weren't in any position to sell out anything. But you could say they sold out Africa from a euphemistic standpoint to say that they did open up Africa to Europe. They
Mm,
did. They
mm,
did. But again, that was something that was done over time. That was something that was done over 700 years. When the Moors went to Spain in 711, for example, there
mm-hmm.
was no Great Britain. You know what I'm saying? There was really no England. You know what I'm saying? There were angles. There were several kingdoms within what we call Great Britain now, but it was hardly what it would become in the 17th century. Far too often we look at history and we turn a few pages, and we're turning hundreds of years when we turn those few pages. Not understanding what was actually happening. So no, the Moors didn't sell out Africa. The Moors weren't a group who could sell out Africa. What the Moors did that was very damaging to Western Africans was after they were expelled from Spain, where, these people who were expatriates who lived in El Andalus, who came back into Morocco, who had probably never been in Morocco in their entire life, but they became part of the Moroccan nobility. They sided with the English and brought cannons and stuff, and they attacked Songhay
mm,
and destroyed Songhay. They destroyed Songhay.
mm,
So, but no, it was no concerted effort. It's not that simple. It's far
okay.
more nuance into that story. It's a very interesting history, and to write it off as somebody sold somebody out that's a bit much, man. This is not a fucking mafia movie. Excuse me. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot deeper than that. We're talking about things that took hundreds of years to occur.
Right, right, right. Because people have to understand how civilization come into existence,
Right.
and in order to have a civilization, right, there is going to be the sacrifices taking place. There's going to be the bloodshed.
There's going to be conflict. Yeah, there's going to be
Right,
conflict.
yeah, it's not always the handshake, the peace treaty,
Yeah.
and everybody celebrating and drinking wine or whatever. No.
Yeah, like when the Saracens came across North Africa, they met resistance from the Vandal kingdoms that were there, but their biggest resistance came from the indigenous Berbers. You know what I'm saying? Some of whom were led by women. You know what I'm saying? They came. That was some of their biggest opposition was these Berber people, these Amazigh, who they called themselves Amazigh at the time. But yeah, these people who would be the ancestors of the Amazigh. They fought ferociously against the Arabs, but they were outdone in time, and they in time assimilated to the Muslim identity, as
Hmm.
did quite a few Black Africans as well.
Hmm. Wow. Now, someone asked, "Do you feel Christianity is originally an African belief system?"
No, not African, definitely not necessarily African belief system, but it wasn't a European thing as we see Europe now either. Christianity was more of a
Mediterranean.
yeah, more of a Mediterranean, more of a like Middle Eastern or Anatolian thing. You know what I'm saying? More so than just a European thing. Just Christianity that the way we see Christianity now is certainly European, but the Christianity that was adopted by the Ethiopians, that was it was Greek. So like we'll say Greek would be wholly European now, but the Greeks at that time had more in common with people in North Africa the Levant, and even parts of Upper Egypt than they did with people in France. You see what I'm saying? It's not as cut and dry, the way that we're taught to look at it. But it's not an African belief system. No.
Okay. All right. Uh, and this person put black people were in those lands, so-called Europe, for tens of thousands of years before the invasion of the Caucasians. 700 years of the Moors being there was teardrops to a river.
There's no such thing as a Caucasian. First of all, let's get off of this. We can't, like, we want to say how wrong their science is and all that. Yet we use terms like Caucasian. The term Caucasian comes from Frederick von Blumenbach, who in the 18th century decided that the Caucasians were the most beautiful of races because of the skulls that he had. He said that the most beautiful ones were from the Georgian province, which is in the Black Sea region, in the Caucasus region. So he called those people Caucasian. So white people aren't actually even Caucasian. That's just something that they made up. But
Hmm.
what did he say now? I couldn't see it when you posted it. He said what?
Okay.
Oh, the
Oh.
black people were there for that. No, yeah, there were black people who had, like, as attested by the Greeks. There were blacks in Greece. There were blacks in Rome, but there was no mass of black people who lived anywhere in Europe. So to say that the Germans were black, or no, 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 they may have been black, some black people who traveled there, but no, but there was no mass. And by mass, I mean there was no group of black people who bred with each other and maintained their blackness. No, not for 10,000 years. That's nonsense. The original Europeans, the way that the ancestors of the modern day Europeans looked, they were black people. Of course, everyone would be considered a black person at a point, but that just shuts down the whole racial argument, because those people, those black people that we like to point out, like with Cheddar Man and all that stuff, they became modern Europeans. There was no Caucasian invasion. You know what I'm saying? So it was no Caucasian invasion. When they talk about the Caucasian invasion, I think they're talking about the Yamnaya. But then the Yamnaya weren't. They were more of, they say Indo-European, but I would say they were more of a steppe Indian people from the steppes of Asia, who spoke this language, who had the horse-drawn chariots, and they brought the wagon and the wheel, and horse husbandry. When you raise horses, and what I'm saying, they brought that into Europe. But no, those people were already by that time the ancestors of the modern Europeans. There was no group of black people who were displaced by white people. That's nonsense.
All right. So here's my and this gonna be my last question. So, what is your thought on the book by Ivan Van Sertima, The Golden Age of the Moors?
I still own that book. I still
Okay.
own that book. I was gifted that book when I was 14 years old. Um, in 1991, 1992. It's an awesome book. It is an awesome book. Um, I don't have any problems with it, to be honest. I know a lot of detractors like to talk bad, saying that there's a lot of things that Van Sertima got wrong,
Hmm.
perhaps, but there's a lot of information in the book that's pretty good. It's pretty essential. I mean, because what the Muslims, and I don't like to say Moors, because again, those people never called themselves Moors. What these people did, it's amazing. It's amazing in that they were able to, like the algebra, you know what I'm saying, and like concepts like you had people in Western Europe who began to ignore the things like Pythagorean theory. They ignored the higher mathematics. You know what I'm saying? Whereas you had this knowledge coming from Basra, this knowledge coming from Iraq, this knowledge coming from Northern Africa. This mathematics where you get geography, where you get algebra. You know what I'm saying? You get uh the modern camera came out of that era. You know what I'm saying? I forget the name of it. God, I forget the name of it. But you know, you had a lot of innovation that came through that. But what we're actually seeing is the influx of people, different people and different ideas that was allowed to flourish under that Islamic regime that weren't allowed to flourish in Europe, in Western Europe. Whereas, like I said, Venice was on top of the world. Constantinople was still one of the richest places, richest cities on the globe. You know what I'm saying? Until it was surpassed by Baghdad. But I studied under one of Von Sertima's peers, Saleh Ediyama. Um, and so I always have, you know, fondness and respect um, for Von Sertima. You know, although I think his take on the American thing is ridiculous now, you know, but I believed it when I was 13, you know, 14, when I got that book. You know, when I got that book, you couldn't have told me shit. You know what I'm saying? But like now I see otherwise. You know what I'm saying? This is in the '90s, so now I see otherwise. But I definitely recognize Van Sertima for his research. The same way I don't like Skip Bates, but I think he's a hell of a researcher.
Skip Bates.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I
Gates. Oh,
call him Skip Bates
yeah,
on
okay.
purpose
Yeah.
because I don't like him. You know what I'm saying? Because he's a white apologist. You know what I'm saying? He just an old yellow nigga from West Virginia. You know what I'm saying? Who family, you know, kind of got a little ahead because they was yellow and they pretended to be Indians. And West Virginia, you know, West Virginia is actually Virginia. You know what I'm saying? They broke away. You know, they broke away at the Civil War. Well, at the eve
I
of
think
the Civil
he
War.
has great information though, Dr. Henry Louis Gates. Yeah,
Oh,
I
he
think
gets hell of a yo. No, I can't take back anything from. He wrote the book Geography of Africa. That's an awesome book.
yeah, and then like I like his videos on PBS.
Yeah, me
Go
too.
to the
I
African
do.
continent and talk about the history of slavery here in America. Yeah, I
Hmm.
think,
But he's
and
a white apologist. He makes
mm,
white people feel comfortable with slavery. You know what I'm saying? That's his primary
I
thing. He
can see
makes
why
white.
you say that because when he with his show about the DNA, you know,
Hmm.
when they go through the process of their ancestry or whatnot, I can
Hmm.
see, I see why you say that.
Yeah, he's a white apologist. He he you know, like just trying to make white people feel comfortable. Like it was really all of us, and it was no man, no.
I
You know what I'm
think
saying?
okay, well maybe I think what it is he tried not to put the the label, the stigma
Yeah,
on
I
them,
get it. I
try not
get
to
it.
make them feel offended or whatever. But if we know history, history is not gonna always come from a feel good rhetoric either.
Right, right, definitely. But that's what I'm saying. He
Yeah.
makes he makes them feel good.
Yeah,
You
and you can't really do that. I mean, I understand why he's trying to do that because he don't want to come off as being looked as a racist,
right,
but at the same time, it's like you're just basically telling the truth. You're basically showing historical facts based on their ancestry. So whatever their ancestry is and whatever their ancestors was doing during that time period when slavery was happening, it is what it is.
hmm
And uncomfortable feeling. Which is
right.
one of the
Get
reasons
it
why
back.
they trying to fight against that very hard in the public schools and not teaching about slavery and all of that, etc. Because they don't want, the white kids to feel some kind of way. You
Right.
know, they don't want to,
Yeah, but nobody ever thought about how black kids felt about it.
exactly,
You know,
exactly.
you know what I'm saying?
So if you're going, it's like it's very confirmation bias to me. Because if you're gonna talk about history, you gotta tell the history from the good and the bad and the ugly. If you're not gonna deal with the ugly part of the history or the bad, then you might as well not even deal with the history altogether.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is,
That
and
I
this
mean,
and
that's
and
just
this
how I
this
see it.
this sounds fucked up. What I'm about to say, but you can't take history personally. You know what I'm saying? You really can't. When you're really studying history, you can't take it personally because, to be quite honest, it didn't happen to you. It's not about what happened to you. It's about history being the foundation upon which we stand. You know what I'm saying? That's why history is important because it's the foundation. You've never walked in a building that was built the day you walked in it. Any building you ever walked in was built before you got there. That's history. You see what I'm saying? You know,
Right.
we weren't born. I wasn't born and just became who I am because it was destined to be that way. I was born into a place with all these preconceived notions. I was born into a place with, well, contrivance, rules. Contrivance rules our world. I'm born into that.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm born into history. History is a ever living thing. You know,
Right.
we are history. You know what I'm saying? So to say that, whether it was good or bad, it means nothing. Like I don't know how I feel to get whipped, by a bullwhip. You know,
Right.
hopefully I'll never know
Again,
that
but there's a
feelings.
thing called epigenetics, though.
Right. But
That's certain
what I
because you.
do know, what I
Mhm.
do know is how that affected my people and affects
Right.
me, the way I look at the world. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
It's
So
because it lives in through your, say through your genetics.
right.
You know what I mean? So you carry that burden. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to live it, but you carry on that trauma because
Yeah,
it's
because and even taking I like the epigenetic argument, but
Mhm.
it exists in the society. You know what I'm saying? It's like this. We have to understand this how deep racism is. Racism isn't white people calling black people nigga, and black people calling white people cracker. That's not what racism is. What racism actually is what I call uh white standardization, the delusion of white standardization. Because
Right.
what racism creates a hierarchy of race where white on the top and blacks on the bottom. So
Pretty much.
racism is actually whiteness. You know what I'm saying? That's how come like in the Moorish Science Temple where they said we're not black, Negro, or colored. To this day, I have a problem with being called colored. I don't like it because what it implies is, if you think about it, if you have a coloring book and
Mhm.
it's blank. Once
Mhm.
you color it, it's colored. It's done because you colored it. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of putting white people at um making white people the standard, or like everyone is a derivation of white folks. You know what I'm saying? Whereas you have white folks and everyone else is colored. And I think melanated comes across the same way. I don't like that term either. You know what I'm
Melanated.
saying? I like black. And the reason I like black is because I think it shits in the face of what they say black means. Like according to the Moorish Science Temple, they say black means death according to science. That's not true. That is simply not true.
Yeah.
And when you look at black from the perspective of black Africans, where they celebrated their blackness,
Mhm.
you get a different perspective. And what we have in the West, we have such a uh fucked up way of looking at the world that we think that the way we look at the world is correct. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to it just being a perspective. When you look at the perspective of the Mandinka women who would paint the palms of their hands black in order to be more beautiful, they certainly didn't have this belief that black meant death. So why should I believe that black means death?
Exactly.
You know what I'm
But
saying? So no, from a white perspective, black is bad. Even the term nigga, that's why it's like what's insulting about calling you black? Because you're black. That's all it means. But there's a reason why we find it offensive from white people, because at the time it implied ownership. It implied being a slave. Especially right after emancipation.
mhm.
But black people never had a problem with the word nigga. We said nigga all the time. I mean, the masses of us said nigga all the time. But these free
Right.
blacks in Philadelphia might have had a problem with it. But niggas on plantations in Virginia and Georgia and Mississippi and fucking Kentucky, Tennessee, they ain't have a problem with no
Of
word.
course, because they were so used to hearing the words to
Yeah,
where
but
like
the word was taken as offensive. It wasn't something that was innately offensive. And to be quite honest, initially, like when John
because
Rolfe,
they didn't know that though. They didn't know that it was offensive. I'm talking about our people. They didn't know it was offensive. They just
but
thought
it
it was.
wasn't offensive though. That's what I'm saying. What was offensive about it? When John Rolfe,
If you really look up the origin of the word nigger, right? It
mhm.
goes back to the word denigrate. So to be denigrate means what?
Nah, that's not true. There's no connection with you saying denigrate. You
Denigrate.
saying right? No, no,
Hold on.
that's not true. There's no etymology in the Latin language that has the word Negro at all. That was a word that was transliterated into Latin. That wasn't a word that they came up with themselves. During the Pax Romana, the time of Marcus Aurelius, the word used for black amongst in Latin was mortals. It wasn't negra. Negra was later. Negra arguably came from Roman incursions into the Niger River basin. So nigger that we use actually comes from the word Niger, like
Right.
in the Niger River.
I don't know if you can see that. Well, it sucks if you can't see it. Okay,
Yeah,
so you see.
I'm familiar with the argument though. You can
Oh,
just talk about it. I'm familiar with the argument.
yeah, yeah. It said see the nigger rate. So
Yeah, like to say denigrate. You know
oh,
what I'm
then
saying? Nah, but there's no nope. That word has no etymological. Um, it just sound. It's called a homophone. There's no relationship with those words. Not at all.
oh well. I'm just gonna read it. It says according to this information, it says to denigrate or denigrate,
Denigrate. Yeah.
yeah, denigrate people is literally to blacken them. The word comes from Latin denigrate, blacken, a compound verb formed from the intensive prefix, all right, which is niger, like you said, black.
Nice.
This
Right. Right.
which is of unknown origin also produced French noir, which is black, and Italian nero, black, and is the source Spanish negro and English negro,
Hmm.
and the now taboo nigger, niggerate.
Okay. Look at when that word came into usage.
You said when what
When that word came into usage. When did people start using that word?
what what you talking about?
Denigrate. Or
Denigrate?
using Negro in that with it being negative.
Hmm.
I'm saying that's a modern thing. When Niger, the word Niger means river.
Right.
When the Romans came, when they came into the Niger River basin, they called these particular black folks down there Niger. They didn't mean that they were less than. It didn't even mean that they were black, but it came to mean black. The word came to mean black. So yeah, it could be associated with it later on. The same way
Right.
the word moron is from more, which is
Mm.
black as well. You know what I'm saying? But no, initially no. The word Niger only means river. But
Right.
what I'm
Right.
saying is
Niger
when
means
okay,
river.
look, look, let's
Niger.
look at it context. Let's think about context again.
No.
When John Ross,
Called
when
the origin of words, the
yeah, I
etymology.
know, yeah. I'd be willing to talk to whoever made that statement, and I had this same conversation with them. If
Okay.
you look at if you look at the if you look at John Ross when he said uh in 1619 20 or some odd niggers were on the ship or whatever, right? When he
Hmm.
said 20 or some odd niggers, he didn't mean ignorant people. He didn't mean stupid people. He simply meant black people. Nigar, which he spelled it Neggars, was the Dutch corruption of the Portuguese and Spanish word negra. That's all. And it only means black. That's all it means. Like words like denigrate, yeah, that came into being. Yes, I stand
Yeah.
corrected.
Right. Because
However, what I'm saying is, from when white people call black people niggers initially, or negro, or whatever you want to say, it only meant black. To say that it's a negative thing is from a white perspective, because to be black may be negative to them, but to niggers, why would it be negative?
well, it ain't negative to be black, but okay. So here's the thing: to be called a nigger, right? To be that will it goes beyond that. It's more so, oh, you're a lower class. You're
You're
you
a
have
slave.
you have
You're a
no value.
slave.
Right.
That's what I said. It implied ownership. Like during slavery, it was the term used for black people. After slavery, like for instance, my name Whitfield, or say Battle, because that's Atkins-Battle is my name as well. Anyway, but say my name Battle, and I'm a slave, right? And they were like, well, who is that nigga? That is Battle's nigga, Kudjo. That's who he is. And that's who I would have been. That's how I would have been identified by the wider world around me at that time. However, after emancipation, who is that? And it's like, that's Battle's nigga. And my response would be, I'm not his nigga anymore, because I'm no longer his slave. So the word nigga implied slavery. That's why we don't like when white people say it. but we say it amongst ourselves. If you read any slave narrative, them niggas said nigga all the time. The same way we do now.
Well,
The same.
I mean, I'm not downing. They probably
Yeah.
did say, no, sir,
No,
I'm
we
not down.
did. I
You
mean, you
know, we
read any slave narrative, they said nigga all the time. And they didn't, the word itself, it did, from a white perspective, it did come to mean, it does mean something negative from their perspective, but from our perspective, no. Why should I
right.
look at it from their
What I'm
perspective?
saying is we eventually turned it into something positive. You know what I'm
We
saying?
were, see, we didn't turn it into, we never, we always had it like that.
Right,
It was always something positive.
but
It
what I'm
was
saying,
just the way to say dude, the way we
didn't
use it
have
now.
okay, but prior to that incident or prior to slavery, we can't find historical facts that black people going around saying, "Hey, nigga." You know what I'm
True.
saying? I mean,
Yeah, but true,
they was
but we got to understand that
dangerous.
slavery was a very formative part of our history. As a matter of fact, I would argue it's the most formative part of our history as far as us being in the United States. And we did use the term all the time. And
Right.
it
Okay.
was, we
I'm
didn't
saying,
do it
we
ignorantly.
use the term. What our ancestors used those terms because they heard these people call them that word, so they like, hey, okay, well, we niggas. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Right.
Yeah, the same way we use the term human being, because we learned that from them too. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But what I'm saying is the negative connotation, that was something that would come later. From a white person's perspective, being black might be a bad thing, but from a perspective of a black person, being black shouldn't be a bad thing. However, it is because unfortunately we tend to have the same ideals as white folk because we grew up here. We adhere to a type of thinking, Western thinking, that essentially, we think like white folks. And so, with my opposition to thinking like that, I can't take on the way they look at it as the way it is. No, fuck them, how they look at it. I'm talking about I'm developing my own perspective. So,
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective, no, I don't look at it like that at all. It
Okay.
doesn't mean slave to me. It may mean that to them. It
Okay.
doesn't mean it to me.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you being here, and I hope to build with you next time. This was great. I hope everybody else enjoyed it. This was a great build. Thank you for taking your time out to come here and having this dialogue conversation with me. I hope the listening audience got something out of this. And if you guys have any more comments or questions, you can leave it at the bottom of the video at the bottom of the description link, etc. Put all your comments on there, and I'll try to respond as much as possible. But again, thank you, Melvin, for coming through.
Yeah,
Um,
big up Virginia. Hey, look, if you ever want to talk about that, um, these Aboriginal claimants too, you know what I'm saying? I'm down for that. You know what I mean? Because I'm from Virginia, I'm from the Rick, you know what I'm saying? In real
okay,
life, you know what I'm saying? I,
all
I'm,
right.
I'm,
Well, it's a lot of things we're gonna
I
talk.
stand on that.
Okay, it's a lot of things I would like to build with you on. So I'll keep you posted, and we'll
Thank
stay in
you.
touch. All right.
Thank you
All
for having me.
right. Well, thank you. And thank you for the dialogue. Thank you for the information.
Big up Virginia. Big up Georgia, Northern Georgia especially. You know what I'm saying? That's the beginning. You know what I mean?
Okay. All
Big
right.
up. Big up to the South. Big up to black folks.
Right. Big up to
Big up
the
to
South.
the South.
Right. Southern
That's right.
connection.
That's right. Because
Yeah.
everybody from here. You hear me?
Yep.
Everybody from here. That's right.
Right. The
Let them
Southern.
know we are the culture. The
That's
South.
right. Oh yeah, most definitely. We
We
are
are
the
the
culture.
culture.
We are the culture.
We
But you
are
know
the
what?
culture.
And speaking of that, we're gonna have a
Yeah.
conversation about hip hop in the South.
We
Um,
are the culture.
if
That's
you
right.
if you're to it, just let me know.
All right. I'm cool. Thank you again. Appreciate you.
All right then.
All
Well,
right.
you have
Big
a
up
good night.
Virginia.
All right.
Take
Good
it
night.
off. Peace.
Peace. All right, y'all, and I appreciate y'all coming through. Real talk. That was a great dialogue. That really was. Again, the brother is very intelligent. He's very knowledgeable, and he knows a lot about history, not just the Moorish history, but American history, Black history, and all that. So shout out to him. I'm looking forward to having him back on here to have a conversation. And shout out to you guys in the chat. And I know some of y'all had some disagreements with him, and I understand. Um, and some of you guys had some good questions on here, and I hope those questions were answered. But I'm about to go ahead and log off. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, check out my previous videos that I've done. So I have more videos to come. Until then, y'all take it easy. Y'all be safe. Peace, power, elevation. It's your girl Tiffany, and I'm out. All right. And like you said, big up to the South. Big up to the South. Big up to the A. Yeah, big up to Georgia. Big up to Virginia, Tennessee, all those areas. Big up to the South, for real. All right, peace. Does he have a? Not that I know of, no. But he does have a Facebook page. So if you want to follow him, you can just follow him under Melvin Bay. His name Melvin Whitfield-Bey. Just follow him. Okay. So I can give you his Facebook page and you can add him if you like. All right. But I forgot to ask him that too. But anyways, I do know he has a Facebook page, but I'm not sure about an IG. All right. But anyways, you guys take it easy. All right. And have a good one.